Welcome to the What's Working podcast, the podcast where we ask, what's working? Hey everybody, welcome to the What's Working podcast. I am Jimmy Nash, and I am thrilled to have in studio today Jordan Finger, founder and managing partner of Noal Partners. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
So, Noal Partners is a marketing, advisory, and growth consultancy that helps B2B and customers and consumer brands scale profitably through smarter media, analytics, and strategy. Yes. So, I'm going to go ahead and list some of the stats I see that are pretty impressive right out of the gate, so you don't have to brag on yourself. I see $5 billion plus in revenue driven, $900 million plus in ad spends, over 100 brands scaled. So that's pretty impressive. Tell me, how did you start this journey? How did you get on step one?
Yeah, so my journey started actually, not to date myself too much, but in the late 90s. So they call that like Internet 1.0. Mm-hmm. And I was working in corporate America in TV ad sales, and I started seeing some things happening on the internet. And I was based in Manhattan, kind of a lot of the ground zero of what was to become. And I took a post-work free internship with a group called studio.com. Many may not know it, but they were like YouTube before there was YouTube. Mm-hmm. And the founder had a big loft down in Soho, New York. And he had different, what are now called podcasts, but in essence, TV video series. They weren't called podcasts right then. And I was acting as kind of a, freelance marketer, producer, whatever they needed done. It's kind of like the Andy Warhol of the early 90s in terms of like tech. I think Josh Harris, that was the founder. He had started some technology companies back in that period. So anyway, so that's where it all started. And I kind of learned and got the itch for it. And then I started networking and said, hey, I need to get into this internet industry thing. Mm-hmm. And my friends thought I was crazy. Like, you're in New York City, go work in a big ad agency or something, or a big consumer brand. And I was like, no, I want to do this internet thing. So everyone thought I was crazy. But that's how it all started.
Okay. So you started, and is that when you started Noal Partners, or was
No. Yeah, that's way back in time. So yeah, that was the starting point. And then from there till present day, I work both in some early agencies, learning the trade. I also worked in-house at many brands. A couple of the more recent brands that I was in-house for, running all their growth marketing as like their CMO, was Freshly, which was one of the fastest growing meal subscription company. And then after that, I went to Nutrafol, which was a hair supplement subscription company. And they both respectively had some big exits, one to Nestle, the other to Unilever. So after having those big accomplishments in my career, I kind of transitioned back to being independent and started what is now Noal Partners. So this group started in around 2019. And what my focus was that groups like Freshly and Nutrafol, they had venture funding, but there was a lot of other direct-to-consumer brands that didn't necessarily have the investment capital to really be able to afford someone like myself to come in-house. So I started working as what I brand as a fractional CMO. So fractional chief marketing officer, sometimes a chief growth officer. Title doesn't matter, but the idea is getting access to the experience, the credentials, the credibility, the success portfolio that I have, and bring it into younger, more emerging brands. And so that was kind of the start of what became Noal Partners. And over that period of time, I've worked with dozens of brands in that capacity. So from everything from just overall like go-to-market strategy, like, hey, Jordan, we're launching product X. We've never done this. What do we do? To, hey, Jordan, we launched product Y. We've been in the market for a year or two. We're getting some traction, but we don't really also know what we're doing. And we really like to put in some systems and operations to really be able to scale the business further.
Right. I think it's so important to be able to offer your services as a fractional CMO because people, they think marketing's too expensive, but it's too expensive not to market your product. And
Absolutely.
it gives them a place to start with you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, to speak to that, what I find is, yeah, when people hear about marketing, they hear about, there's sales and marketing, right? Sales is I bring in a rep, I don't pay them, I only pay them commission. Great. That mitigates my financial downside. And I only share in the upside as do they. With marketers, there needs to be some sort of budget. And yeah, when you're working with young brands, a lot of them are bootstrapping it, or they've gotten some small investment dollars from friends and family. It's a high risk, so there's a lot of passion about it, a lot of fear, and a lot of concerns about how that money's going to be used. But to your point, if you're not bringing in a professional, then you're really going to burn through that money a lot
Right.
faster, and you're lowering your odds that you're going to have any sort of liftoff or success with what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. So how does your mindset shift when you're advising either like a startup, maybe
Mhm.
could be startup with venture capital, or a startup who's bootstrapping it versus a
Right.
mature organization that's just trying to modernize its marketing?
Yeah. Well, again, my focus is really the digital world, so I'll speak to that. The playbook doesn't really vary dramatically. It's customized for that individual brand or product that we're working on. But that work but the customization work is really more of the marketing work, more of like, hey, who's the persona that we're trying to target? What's the pain points we need to solve for them? How does our product or service solve it better, different, more efficiently than what's available to them? So like that work is universal. And what I find is a lot of brands just don't do that work. They just like, oh, I want to sell this product, but they don't really understand who their customer is. They think they're the customer. They may be, and maybe it solved a problem in their lives, but is that problem really universal across the marketplace to really build a business that's scalable? So like that's really like the fundamentals, and really understanding that is universal regardless if you have funding or not. So really approaching it from the basics and starting like what's best for the consumer. And once we identify that, then we build the strategy and the program around it. And so the
Mhm.
beauty of digital is that we can kind of start small-ish and grow accordingly, right? So where budget investment dollars in terms of marketing come in is the more investment we have, the faster we can learn, the
Mhm.
more data we can get back, and then we can optimize campaigns in a more in a quicker manner, we'll say. When we have smaller budgets, it's a little bit more challenging. So let's ISO that even deeper. So again, regardless of the starting point, whether it's I'm going to market, I'm in market, I want to scale my business, which use like those three criterias, what's really most important is getting that data loop, right? Because what's happening, what's happened and what's happening now even more is the advent of AI and all these platforms.
Right.
And when we're working in digital, AI is being really accelerated by the big boys, the Amazons, the Meta, the Apples, the Googles, right? And so as a digital marketer, we're on the front lines of how that AI is influencing the marketplace. So in the past, a brand may come to me, and let's just use Meta as an example, and they say, hey, Jordan, we want to target women, moms that have teenage kids to offer this product to. Great. We would go and build a lot of that audience targeting in Meta. What
Mhm.
AI has done is they're eliminating all of that kind of manual structure you would put in. And they're saying your targeting is about your ad content. So if your messaging is to resonate with moms, make content that mom will resonate with. The AI will pick up on those signals and then self-select and identify who the right audience is to target. That's why it all ties back to that persona building. If you don't really nail that and
Mhm.
the messaging and the problem solution and the offer that you're going to give that potential consumer, then you're going to lose out in this kind of AI world and the game that we're all now having to play.
Right. So while we're on it, talking about AI and what you just mentioned, talking about the ads on Meta,
Yes.
this is a conversation I'm having daily with people
Yes.
because someone asked me to that same end. It's like, what about SEO? Is SEO dead? Or what about Google? Now I get my AI overview. How has that
Yeah.
changed how you even get your customers, let's say, to show up in search results?
Yeah, so that's well, It's moving quickly in terms of the technical nuance. But think about what is a search engine. A search engine saying the input is I need to find information on X.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the results to find that information on X. So like if we look at like Google now, let's say ChatGPT. So my own example, I don't use Google for a lot of searches anymore. I still use it for, let's say, restaurants or a map or something more
Mm-hmm.
like geo local. I'm traveling and I want to find a pizza place nearby, whatever it might be. But when I'm doing kind of broad stroke searching, I'm actually using chat, but chat is still crawling Google, right? So
Right.
the search may not be originating at this point on Google, but it will ultimately then tie back to Google because it becomes like a meta crawler. That's really what AI
Mm-hmm.
is doing. So the content is still king, right? You still can't get away from making the relevant content, the right content. All the SEO tactics are still very relevant. It's just the starting point is changing and fluctuating. And then I would say the additional part is if you did like an SEO or sorry, if you started your search for whatever you're looking for on Google, it's kind of, we'll just call it like one dimensional. I do a search, it gives me results. That's it, beginning and end. And then I may have to put another search in there to go deeper. The beauty of a chat search is that it builds a storyline, right? It's
Right.
sequential.
It
So if
does.
anything, SEO will actually even get better if you're giving the feed more and more of the relevant content. Because before, oh, let's just rank on page one. Now it's not about whether it ranks on page one. It's like, can you continue that content and that storyline for that individual and what they're searching for? Because you're now having a dialogue with that search engine.
Right. So that's very interesting. Yeah. So it's still all very relevant in that content.
Yes.
It's just I think everyone is just wanting to know how do I need to change my content? Uh, do I need to spend more on advertising to get above those rankings so AI will like is that interacting at all as far as like paying still for those Google ads versus what's going to show up in the AI overview?
Yeah. So I feel like going to paid ads, that shifted a lot. And that's really the way Google, as the search king, is shifted their own model, where probably already now a few years where a lot of brands that might feel new is they've been pushing a lot of AI in their system, and their kind of default product is called Performance Max. And what Performance Max does, it works within Google, but then it kind of searches across all of their properties: YouTube, email, display, search, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So it's trying to look at that person across all of its properties and then give it the most relevant search result. From the advertiser's perspective, it's taken away a lot of that control and that influence, right? So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of brands, more on consumer, I can't say if this is for legal services, like, hey, I'm a local lawyer in this town. The traditional manual search will definitely still work well for you.
Right.
But if it's like, hey, I'm selling baby food, um, it's going to favor this PMAX versus you manually buying that keyword. So it's taken away a lot of that content and control of that placement and getting in front of an audience like we used to have. But that then leads me to my next point on that question around paid advertising, which is really universal regardless of the channel you're buying on. So if you're buying on Meta, you're buying on Google, and you're driving to your respective website. The thing that a lot of folks forget is that once they leave those platforms, the brand, the company has 100% control of where they send that traffic to.
Right.
Right. So now the kind of like the store experience or the front door experience or wherever you put that user is even more important than ever, because now they're no longer being controlled by the AI algorithm on those engines. They're now in your environment. So
Mm-hmm.
like the analogy I like to do is, let's say I'm in Manhattan, the weather's getting chilly, and I see a billboard for a fall jacket at the local Zara, right? So the ad is the
Mm-hmm.
billboard, traffic is me walking down Fifth Avenue, and then I go into the store. What's my experience? Is it dirty? Is it well lit? Is it poorly lit? Is the product not on the shelves? All these different aspects. So it's the same thing as like once they come into your environment, that's where a lot of the control still happens on the marketers. And what I'm specifically seeing, and I've been doing this more and more for clients using AI, but using AI to build these very customized landing page experiences. Where in fact, I do a lot of work in the food and beverage space.
Okay.
It used to be, hey, let's run an ad, Google, Meta, wherever, and like, oh, we're selling this product. Let's send them to our product page, let's say on our Shopify store, and it has the price and the information. Great. That's kind of the default, right? What we're doing now is saying, hey, this ad we don't send to our product page. Let's send them to a custom landing page, whether it's an offer, whether it's something more specific about our story, our history, what founder's story, whatever it is, getting really, really kind of specific around showcasing our story and the why. Why does it matter? Why are you coming here? Right. Where a PDP page, a product page could be very one dimensional. And then what we're doing is we're taking the ad user into this custom landing page environment, and we're actually bypassing the entire website and driving them right into the checkout. And by doing that kind of very streamlined process, really controlling that whole user journey from awareness to click to lander into funnel, we've seen conversion rates go up 30, 40, 50% virtually overnight, right? Like didn't change the ads. We had no control of what the algorithm did with our ads, but we changed the environment after the click, which we can control, and then we're able to enhance it. And the other beautiful thing that we're doing is, you could heat map, you could track that activity. So then when you're tracking that activity, we're like, hey, we're getting people on this part of the page. Since it's a landing page environment, you could iterate and test lots of different things versus on your PDP. That's kind of your default. You don't want to make too many big swings on there, right? So we might be like, hey, it's holiday seasons. Let's make this look very holiday-esque, or let's have a special holiday offer, or let's change our headline, or let's change our hero. So we could do a lot of split testing to really optimize that user's experience outside a traditional product display page.
So that's very, very interesting to me, talking about, because I hear a lot more and more of this about, the why should you buy this product versus just, okay, it's this and you need this product, so you should buy ours.
Yeah.
They're like, my wife and I are very eco-conscious. So if there's something so those brands, I understand very much the why, but is it across the board with any brand that you would represent having more of the why and why you should get behind this product?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. So and again, it ties back to my original comment of persona building, right? Like people buy on emotion, not so much facts. Right? The facts are there to support their emotional decision. And they're like, oh, I made the right decision because I got the right facts. But ultimately, do you connect with them emotionally? And what is emotion? It's storytelling, right? So if you're able to find that emotional connection, then you're more likely to get them to click and buy your products, right? So the FAQs, or there's always that percentage of folks that do go like, I need to read the label, how much fat is in this, how much sugar is it? You always have those folks, but the lion's share of folks are like, oh, this is cool. Like it's clean energy. It doesn't have all the sugar, whatever it might be. And if you're able to do, let's say, hey, me and my wife, we're very, like you said, eco conscious, and you both are on the camera telling your story. That's powerful. That's very, very powerful. Right. And then you come across as trustworthy, as passionate, as like, this is beyond me just like putting a product up there to make a buck. So that to me is universal. And I do think that there's a lot of value even in like traditional service businesses, right? You're a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, a local practitioner, right? Like they're used to just referral businesses, but but what's the difference between you and the 10 other law firms down the block, right? And same thing with consumer product. What's the difference between you and the 10 other beverages I saw an ad on Instagram, right? So if they all click and they all say the same thing, then there's really not a huge motivation to kind of explore it further. So I absolutely believe, and no, not even just believe, the data supports it, that's still critical to any product or service being marketed through these channels.
That's awesome. And it's just amazing that we can, like you said, do so much A/B testing for where you're sending people to give them what's going to drive them to care about the product.
Yeah.
So on your site, you emphasize building growth through disciplined, and that's a big word, disciplined marketing and analytics. Yeah. What would be the first key to that, to having disciplined marketing and analytics?
Yeah. So I think I touched upon it earlier. The brands I see that really are able to scale from the work I do with them is we're putting in like, standard operating procedures, SOPs, right? Like what's the operation? What's the protocol? What's the discipline about our practice, right? Like if we don't have like kind of even like A/B testing, if we change too many variables, we've taken away the discipline of like testing one variable, right? And so we're really not learning anything. And the beauty of these platforms is you can iterate, you can experiment, you can test, but putting the discipline to that test. For younger brands, there's a like, I need to solve this today mentality, which I get the sense of urgency, and that's okay. But time will give us more data points, right? So the discipline comes from allocating resources, financial, creative, intellectual, data resources, gathering that information, and then being able to look back and making right informed decisions. So I think the discipline, in my eyes, comes from putting together the right work processes in place and then kind of rinse, wash, repeat. It's not always the most exciting part, but when you have the breakthroughs, it's exciting, right? So like, hey, we started here when we launched the product. Now we're 8 weeks in. If we did an impulse like, oh, this didn't work and walked away from it, we would have given up too soon because we weren't disciplined to our process. When we work through the process, which I have because I built this playbook numerous times, and they follow that playbook, right? We will discover and find the wins. And then those little micro wins they compound just like interest, right? Like this win leads to this win. Like everything is built a building block on top of something else. And not everything's a win, right? Also, the things we learn that don't work increases the odds of getting to that win quicker because we eliminate the things that are not working for what we're trying to do to bring in that user into our, buying our product or service.
And so if you have a client, let's say that you put this plan in place and you say, okay, we need 6 months to see if this is, or 3 months, or however long.
Right.
How do you deal with if they start to get nervous and say 6 weeks in, oh, we better shift. This isn't working.
Yeah. No, yeah, that happens a lot, especially at a younger organization, even if they have funding, right? Because even if they have funding, they're meeting with their boards and they're being held accountable. Usually, like you said, on like just like public companies on this quarterly basis, like the world still works in that environment. So I think the biggest thing is trying my best up front to collectively set expectations. I rather, we all want to get business, we all need to earn a living. But I'd rather outline what does that 90-day journey look like? What is the investment going to be required to really get there? And so therefore, we're not 2-3 months into this, like, oh, why are we spending so much money? It's like really giving them that framework, kind of that scope of work in terms of what work needs to be done, what investment needs to be done, what agencies or agents or people we need to pull into this, what technology we have to do. So like really building, let's say like that marketing plan, that marketing stack up front. So trying to set expectations as best we can. But again, humans are very emotional. And even if you present that, it's always hard to kind of overcome when they're feeling that knee-jerk reaction to pull back.
Right.
So, that's why I am on these type of calls a lot with clients. I usually always offer a client at least a formal once a week call. A lot of it is kind of what you just said. It's kind of like there's comfort. It's like going to your shrink. If you're going through a tough time, meeting with them a few times over a month feels a lot better than like, I don't know when I'm going to see them again, right? So it's like business therapy, like speaking to me, my team on that weekly basis. At least it's contained. Like anything that feels really raw or out of whack, we get addressed very quickly. Right. And then on a particular brand or a client, right? Right, because they might have a boss or they have a founder they have to report to or board, right? Like we're all under the gun, then if we need to get another call, we get another call. So it's like iterative walking through the process. What can you bring to the table? What do I need to bring to the table? What do we have to do collectively? So we're in this together. So I feel like when they feel that we're part of creating this team, it kind of helps mitigate some of that fear that everyone times, it pulls all of us. I'm not saying I've completely mastered it, but I will say that I have clients that I've worked with for, 5+ years now, and we've been through our ups and downs, but ultimately working through that discipline, the process, the data, coming up with fresh perspective, reevaluating our product, our offering, all of that, we continue to march forward, and the brands that are able to commit to that process are the ones that ultimately will win.
That's great. So, from a founder perspective,
Yeah.
what's been most surprising to you in growing Noal Partners? Has there been anything that came out of left field versus
Yeah.
working inside a company versus having your own company?
Yeah. So I'll just go back in time. If you cut this, it's fine. But I talked about where I started, but earlier in my career, I actually was one of the first brand creators of selling vitamin supplements online. This is well before Amazon or any of these other players were selling online. So I was kind of an early pioneer on marketing vitamins and supplements online, and I built that into a pretty successful business. Um, and so I learned a lot back then. I'm not going to date myself and go into all of that history right now, but this is not my kind of first go around, we'll say. That's all.
Right.
That's a very different business that deals with manufacturing, cost of goods, there's customer service, at a higher volume. So different type of business, different type of mindset as a founder, as an operator, more as a fractional CMO. I would say that what surprises me most is just kind of the things we talked about. There's this lofty, I want to become X, Y, and Z, but they think that that's going to happen just because they work with an expert, and then 90 days they're a multi-million-dollar business, but no one knows their brand. They have no consumer loyalty yet, right? And so setting that expectation, was I just discussed early, is very important. The other thing that always surprises me is when a brand does engage my services, those that kind of want to do it their way and
Mm-hmm.
not the way they, not through my playbook. And my analogy always there is like, let's just say like an NFL team, right? You have an owner, very wealthy, successful owner, and they put a head coach in, but then like the owner's calling all the plays on the field, right? Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you hired me to do that. Like, give me the flexibility to do that. And so I always find it challenging when brands want to keep doing it their way, and then they come to me like, Jordan, why isn't this working? Right. So it's like,
Right.
well, the reason why you came to me is because it wasn't going the way you planned, and I'm bringing you my expertise, and there's a collaborative process here. But those that do embrace the more of the Jordan way tend to find more success and scale faster and more efficiently than those that just want to kind of do it their way. And look,
Right.
the ones that want to do it their way, that's fine, and I'm just not the right person to work with. So I mean, those are the biggest things. I'd say kind of the challenges for all those agency owners, maybe that's listening, or freelancers or consultants. It's, you know, this is a kind of feast of famine industry and business. You could be very flush with a lot of business for a while, and then you lose a lot of clients, maybe because they ran out of resources financially, or it's a seasonal product, zillion reasons as to why. But that's nothing new in like the ad agency world. It just feels much more profound when it's more of you coming in as a small practitioner, we'll say. So setting your own expectations, understanding that you're going to get a lot of no's. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
not comfortable getting a lot of no's to eventually, hopefully get to a yes, then this is not right for you.
Right.
Regardless if you're doing digital advertising out, like, don't be a business owner,
Right.
because what people don't like to showcase is that most business owners get more no's than yeses. And you hear it all the time, right? I think like Jeff Bezos said, like, I went to 100 investors and they all said no, right? Like, one of the authors had just heard, I went to 30 publishers, they all said no, right? Like, we only know them after they've succeeded. So just as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to get really comfortable with no's, and you have to find a path forward, because while you're getting those no's, you still have to bring in the work to your existing clients, right? And you still have to deliver for them. So you can't kind of wallow in that sorrow. You have to just say, okay, what did I learn from this? Why was it a no? Did I have to sharpen my process? Am I speaking to the wrong potential client? Like maybe they're just not the right client, right? Because what my offering is bigger than what they could afford. That's okay. Therefore, how do I speak to more of the right, my own persona, or what I call my ICP, my ideal customer profile, right? Like who is my ideal customer? What do they look like? How do I get in front of more of those folks where I'm not selling? They're like more like, why didn't you show up sooner? I've been looking for you my whole life, right? So like, you're not really selling, you're just showing up in front of the right person, the right company at the right time.
Right. I think that's an important thing to remember as a marketing agency owners. If you're doing your job right, it's a win-win situation. If you go to a client, you're not just a cost to them, you are an investment and you have an ROI for them. So I think that's very important. You already kind of touched on. I always like to ask you for advice for young marketers starting out. So I think you've already kind of covered that a lot.
And to the young marketers, they have a huge advantage over what I had, right? Like there was no Google and Meta, like none of this existed. It was really, really the Wild West, which made it exciting, but we had to figure out a lot of things on our own, and we didn't have podcasts and YouTube and videos and AI and all the other fabulous. We didn't have social media to promote ourselves. So it's a really exciting time. I think the folks that really embrace the changes that are happening are the ones that are going to be very successful. I think there's a lot of fear mongering in big media, but like everyone's going to lose their jobs and everyone's going to be fired and everyone's going to replace. And maybe that's true, but you still need someone producing and earning something to oversee what these technologies, what this AI is doing, because otherwise it's just going to, it's rudderless. It's just going to run whichever direction it wants, right? So especially for young, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're, starting their career, I'm all about embrace it. Like even if you're just using ChatGPT to do searches, fine. But then what's going to happen is you're going to be like, you know what else can this do? Even myself, I mean, I've been using it pretty actively for the last few years, but now I do like full out analysis for clients, right? Like I'm putting databases and spreadsheets in there and I'm doing deep analysis that if I was doing that without AI, it would take me hours, if not days, to come up with sometimes just one thought or one little thing I needed to find. Within minutes I have an answer. So it's so powerful, and I'm probably not even using it to its true potential, but I will say I have fully incorporated into my life, and I feel it's made me better at what I do, both personally and professionally. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better professional. It's made me a better marketer. It just made me better. It's kind of like, I feel like it's like Super Jordan, right? Like it's expanded my abilities beyond my human abilities.
Right.
So that's kind of where I see it. And I think those that do it even if they're later in their career, like don't shy away from it. Like embrace it. Like you can't bury your head in the sand. And since I've been in this internet industry for, almost 3 decades, what I find is when something new is happening, there could be a lot of hype, but when you take the time to learn it, you end up being ahead of the curve for 99% of everybody else. And then eventually everyone else catches up. But once they catch up, you're already embracing what's next. So having that kind of constantly learning mindset and embracing the growth of the learning process is what will always keep you ahead and always keep you relevant.
Awesome. Completely agreed. I think it sounds like we're both spending a lot of our time learning about AI and all the new things that we're definitely doing so much analysis with that it's not replacing the human element. Like it wouldn't do us any good to just say, here, take all the info and then change the campaign and do that.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, but not today.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this has been a very insightful conversation. Jordan Finger with Noal Partners. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to What's Working. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.